From the other end of the phone, I heard a cool voice. I'm at a small restaurant right now. Do you remember this place? You? I cut off Emily's voice, saying, I remember. You have a good memory. I thought you might be busy today. I interrupted her again. I'm free. Can I come over now? A chuckling sound came from the other end of the phone. It's so frustrating not to be able to see her face. The smile of the girl I used to love is there on the other side of the phone. I'll be waiting. The moment I hung up, I started running. My name is Steve. I'm turning 37 this year. I have recently been assigned to a new department, and am being introduced to everyone at the morning meeting. It's somewhat embarrassing to hear the department head explain things about me. But I can't just stand around. I need to perform beyond what was introduced and contribute to the department. With that determination, I look at everyone's faces to regain my focus. As the morning meeting ends, and everyone is about to return to their desks, that's when it happened. Sorry I'm late, said a young man as he slid into the department. The department head was scolding him for being late. It's not late. Just made it. I'll take the scolding later. I'm really busy right now, he said, opening his laptop. Man, I was drinking with Mr. Johnson, president of our client company yesterday, and it went on late. He invited me to his house. He said if I caught the 7:30 train, I'd make it, and I did just that, but it was a close call. Tough night, he rattled on, unasked. The department started buzzing. Yes, it just happened, he responded lightly to a colleague's question if he had stayed over at the house of the president of our client. Overnight stay at the house of the president of our client. It seems he's good at getting into people's good graces. Even I, meeting him for the first time, found myself disarmed. The department head was visibly troubled, but, ignoring his twitching eyebrows, the man gestured for him to wait. No, I'm really busy right now. There's a meeting with Company S, and I've got a lot of stuff today. Hearing about Company S made me perk up. A lot of stuff? I couldn't help but ask, and the man sighed while looking at his laptop. Yeah. The supervisor from the client said the materials we brought last time weren't enough. So I said I'd bring all the materials. Steve's been pushing me to wrap things up with Company S by today. The young guy glanced at the department head while speaking. He just nodded silently with a stern face. The young guy sighed. I've explained everything thoroughly already. I wonder what's missing. To his muttering, I asked, can I accompany you on this negotiation? At my words, the man looked up suddenly. Eh? Despite his furrowed brows, I pressed on. You said there's a lot of stuff, right? I'll help you carry it. My offer seemed like a godsend, as his face lit up. Really? That would be a big help, he said, then looked back down at his laptop. I'll call you when we're leaving. Thanks a lot. Without looking at me again, he immersed himself back into his computer. The department head gave me a questioning look, as if to say, are you sure about this? I nodded with a smile. 30 minutes later. Let's go. Called by the young guy, I rushed over to him. Oh, by the way, I'm Mark. Have we met before? Actually, I'm the top salesman. Finally, I learned his name. I introduced myself with a wry smile. I'm Steve. Nice to meet you. Mark nodded and handed me a bag full of files, which I took. All right, let's go. With a brisk step, Mark hurried across the floor. I managed to keep up with him. Arriving at Company S, Mark checked us in, and we were directed to a meeting room. Seeing me looking around curiously, Mark laughed. Don't look around so much. Are you okay? Well, it's a big company. Even the meeting room is unnecessarily luxurious. It was unclear if Mark was trying to ease my nerves or just making small talk, but he spoke with a friendly smile. However, it's strange. Doesn't he wonder about me, someone he just met today? Though we had briefly introduced ourselves once, it felt awkward to say anything more. As I was thinking about this, the door to the meeting room opened, and a man entered. This man, Carl, seemed familiar with Mark, and they started chatting amiably right away. Mark, I'm counting on you today. I want to recommend you to my boss with confidence. So please make sure I have enough information to give a boost. Carl said, extending his hand for a shake. Mark gestured towards the bag I was holding and reassured, no worries. Look, I brought a ton of materials. That was when Carl finally noticed me. Who's this? As I was about to introduce myself, Mark cut in, he's just helping me carry stuff today. We have so many files. Oh, really? Carl said. I nodded and greeted him. Though I missed the chance to introduce myself properly, I continued to observe the negotiations. Faced with a mountain of files, Carl looked troubled. Mark, don't you have a summary of this? Mark frowned. But last time, you said to bring all the materials, he replied. Carl groaned. But still, no one's going to look through all these files. If we present this, I'll get chewed out. You know my boss is called the Queen of Ice. You know? Reacting to Carl's words, I asked. The Queen of Ice? As I repeated the term, Carl made a face as if he'd slipped up. Please don't mention it. She's very capable but strict with herself and others. They call her that behind her back. But her judgments are sound, and I've learned a lot under her, so I do respect her, he explained. Choosing his words carefully. Internally, I smiled wryly. Anyway, we can't present this. Carl concluded, decisively dismissing Mark's suggestion. Oh, come on, we've been pressured to wrap this up by today. Can't we meet your boss directly? I'll explain, Mark asked. Carl shook his head vehemently. That's impossible. She's busy with meetings at another branch today. As Carl paled, Mark clung to hope. Please, just 5 minutes. I chuckled to myself. There's no way you can explain all this in just 5 minutes. Mark bristled at my comment. Don't speak up when you don't know anything. I've explained this product many times before. It seemed I had inadvertently wounded the pride of the top sales performer. Regardless, I handed my business card to Carl. Could you please pass this card to your boss? Carl frowned. But. I took a deep breath. Isn't your boss, Emily? At my words, Carl's eyes widened. How do you know that? Did I mention it? I shook my head. I know her from a long time ago. If my business card does not work, then I'll give up and leave for the day. At my words, Mark shot me a reproachful look. I ignored it and continued to stare at Carl. Hesitantly, Carl stood up. I'll just pass the card. If it doesn't work, you'll leave today, right? After his words, I nodded firmly. Reluctantly, Carl took my business card and left the meeting room. After the door closed, Mark began to rant in a panic. What are you promising on your own? We are told to be done by today. If we can't meet, then just leaving like that. I sighed at Mark's complaints. Either way, they will not need us if we don't do anything. I didn't look at Mark as I replied. I could see from the corner of my eye that Mark was flabbergasted. I'm going to say it was your fault today. I just chuckled at his petulant tone. Then, 10 minutes later, the door opened and a familiar face appeared. Steve. When did you get back to the US? A flushed Emily asked, and I smiled. Today is my first day back at headquarters. Emily was greatly surprised. Really? You came to us on your first day? If you had told me, I would have handled it myself. Carl entered the meeting room delightedly. He seemed bewildered, probably having never seen his boss up close like this. Mark's reaction was predictable, even without looking. He must have his mouth wide open. Sorry to trouble you. May I proceed with explaining the product? Emily nodded slightly but then thoughtfully added, since you're here, it might be a bit of a hassle, but could you explain it to 2 more people? I nodded, not fully understanding. Then, Emily instructed Carl, who left the meeting room again. Shortly after, Carl returned with 2 men. These are Mr. Chen and Mr. Huang from our Chinese branch. Since you're here, could you give the presentation in Chinese? She smiled slightly, gauging my reaction. I feel like I'm being tested, and it excites me. Just what I wanted. Of course. Emily, will you? Emily crossed her arms, her expression turning serious. If these two are convinced, I will be too. If there are parts they aren't satisfied with, we'll need more materials later. With the reunion scene over, she switched to business mode, the Queen of Ice persona perfectly intact, devoid of any smile. While feeling a nostalgic fondness internally, I switched into work mode. I set aside the vast files I had brought and began explaining in detail using the materials Mark had previously used in negotiations. Addressing the two Chinese gentlemen, I answered their questions accurately. I could sense that Mark was genuinely surprised. It felt good, a little. But no, it's not right to mock the young man. However, being skilled at winning people over and having never really faced setbacks due to his top sales performance and excessive confidence, perhaps it wouldn't hurt to bend his pride just a little. In fact, this product was one I handled while in China. Therefore, I knew more about this product than Mark did, having seen the manufacturing process and known the development history. I could provide a more detailed explanation than an average salesperson might. The two Chinese gentlemen were very pleased with my explanation, talking to Emily with satisfaction. Emily discarded her iron mask and smiled. Very impressive. May I ask a question too? Prompted by her, I tightened my loosened focus. She had grilled me over and over again in the past. If I stumbled even slightly, it was back to the drawing board. Reminded of my younger days, I renewed my determination. Her questions were sharp, but I managed to answer all of them smoothly. The contract was settled on the spot, and the negotiation was a great success. I'll be in touch, she said as she left, handing me a business card. On the back, an 11-digit number was hastily scribbled. As we exited Company S, Mark started firing questions like a machine gun. Wait. What's going on? Who are you really? You're not just the new guy who volunteered to carry stuff, right? I chuckled. I'm a guy who spent 8 years honing skills at our China branch and returned today as the head of sales section 1, proficient in Chinese. At my words, Mark's eyes bulged in surprise, and he apologized deeply. To a section head. I'm so sorry. I burst out laughing. You should listen when people talk, you know? Our department head tried to introduce me several times, but you never paid attention. Did you? Mark shrank a bit. I'm sorry. I was busy and flustered. I looked at him seriously. You've gotten by with that attitude so far, but what if I had been a very difficult man? You'd be fired, you know? Mark paled a little. But, you're really lucky. I'm not at all difficult, too bad for you. But it was a close call today, huh? It was good luck that I came along today. Mark glanced at me tentatively. So, Steve, how did you get on Emily's good side? He was surely looking to turn my story into a learning opportunity for his job. Smiling inwardly, I began to share an old story with him as we headed back to the office. 15 years ago. After graduating from university, I started working in sales at this company. I underwent training, shadowed a senior, and when it was time for me to handle things on my own, I was assigned to Company S. At that time, Emily was also newly tasked with handling negotiations with our clients. Being new and extremely vigilant, she would stop my explanations at every turn to ask for details. And if I hesitated in my explanations even slightly, she would order me to take the issue back and revise. She was a tough person. She held herself to the same standards, always impeccably dressed in a crisp shirt and well-tailored suit. Back then, I was an audacious young man trying everything I could to win over this difficult client. But she only smiled when I explained things well. It was almost like she was a teacher, and I found it somewhat frustrating. And then, as things went on, I found myself falling for her. Her occasional smile. Breaking through her iron mask, that smile was incredibly beautiful. I was driven by the desire to see that smile and worked hard to suggest things she would like. Gradually, my performance improved. And then, 8 years ago, I received a transfer order. The location was China. I informed her about the change in my responsibilities, but her expression remained stoic. However, unusually for her, she who had never accepted an invitation for a drink even for business entertaining, asked me out for a drink. As a farewell party. Just the two of us. It was in a small restaurant, and we spent just an hour. No flirty conversations, just good food. Not much talk, but the food was delicious. I was impressed she knew such a good place, though it seemed irrelevant. Her last words to me were, "I hope we meet again." Those words strangely lingered in my heart. As I finished my story, omitting my romantic feelings, Mark's eyes widened in amazement. Wow. I'm not good with that kind of strictness. Redoing work if it's not perfect? That's too much for me. Mark said in a disheartened voice. You need that kind of resolve to get attention from some people. Mark grimaced dramatically and said, I'll leave such people to you, Steve, and I nudged him lightly. I wondered how to toughen up this guy who seemed unlikely to be defeated by a mere dent to his pride. After a tumultuous first day, as I left work, I found myself pondering over something. The business card from Emily turned over. 11 digits. Definitely a cell phone number. Probably Emily's private number. Should I call it? Not calling might be impolite after she gave it to me. Various thoughts crossed my mind, but I decided to be honest with my desires. I wanted to see her. That reason was enough. I dialed the number with a pounding heart, and it connected even before it rang once. Just that made me incredibly happy. Hello? Her voice came through tentatively. Right, she wouldn't know my number. Ah, it's Steve. As I spoke, Emily's tone relaxed a bit. Ah, I thought so. Thank you for calling. A brief silence followed. I'm at the small restaurant right now, remember this place? Before you went to China. Before Emily could finish, I interrupted, I remember. Good memory. I thought you might be busy today. I cut her off again. I'm free. Can I come over now? A chuckle came through the phone. It's frustrating not being able to see her expression. The smile of the woman I liked is on the other side of the phone. I'll be waiting. The moment I hung up, I started running. When I arrived at the small restaurant, panting, Emily chuckled. There was no need to rush. I wasn't going anywhere. Seeing her smile that I had missed earlier, I mentally celebrated. I sat down opposite her, my heart pounding. To celebrate your return to headquarters, let me treat you. What would you like to drink? Her left hand, extending the menu, was beautiful. There was no ring on her left ring finger. Her last name hadn't changed. Maybe she doesn't wear rings. Or maybe she keeps her maiden name for work, or perhaps she's married but has a different last name. As I considered all the possibilities, I couldn't bring myself to ask the one question. Are you married? Then, she asked me, are you married? I was taken aback for a moment when the words came from Emily instead. It took me a moment to realize that the question I had been hesitant to ask had been posed by her. She waited for my answer for a bit, then sighed. So, you are married. It's your policy not to wear a ring? I panicked, not expecting her to conclude her own question. I'm not married. Not at all. I was also wondering whether I should ask you that, and was surprised. As I fumbled for words, her expression turned sad. Who would marry a woman called the Ice Queen behind her back? Her self-deprecating words made my heart skip a beat. I would like to, if I could. Upon hearing this, she looked surprised and then laughed. You've always been such a charmer. It was the biggest smile I had seen from her yet. Frustrated that she might think I was joking, I faced her earnestly. I'm not lying. At my words, she suddenly teared up. Ah. I'm sorry. Did I say something to make you cry? Startled by her tears, she was also taken aback. Ah. Tears? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. She wiped her tears with her index finger and looked down. I'm sorry. It's just, lately at home from my mother. Recently, her sister had her third child, and their mother had told her, you'll have to manage your old age on your own. It felt as if she was being told she couldn't hope for children or marriage of her own and should live her life alone. Those words had stuck with her since. I was just a bit troubled, and then you said something unexpected, it shook me. Saying this, she smiled and sipped her whiskey, looking beautiful. Why would you say something so unexpected? I've always liked you, Emily. I decided to be forthright. Ignoring her puzzled look, I continued. Working with you, at first I was always messing up, and you patiently suggested improvements. When things came together, you smiled at me. That smile was beautiful. I poured out all my feelings. Even today, in the meeting room, seeing you who usually doesn't smile like that, smiling so much because of our reunion, and earlier, when I ran all the way here and you smiled. I want to see more of your smiles. I want to see the expressions you show only to me. Even while I was in China. I couldn't forget you. She was flustered. Wait. That's embarrassing. Are you joking? She questioned if all I had said was a lie. Disbelieving, I exclaimed quietly. It's not a lie. Emily. At this, her face turned bright red. If you've given up on marriage, please marry me. Even if it's just as partners for our later years, please stay by my side. I'll spend the rest of my life making you fall for me. Her lips trembled. But I'm already 39 years old, and children. Steve, you should marry a younger woman, not someone like me. It was painful to hear her say that. I gently wiped the tears welling up in her eyes with my index finger. Startled by my touch, she flinched. I want to be with you, not with some younger woman, but with you. I said it quietly, looking into her eyes. When I was about to go to China, you said, it would be nice to meet again. When we met again. I was determined to confess to you, of course. Only if you weren't married. Her eyes widened. Wait, you mean, since that time? I nodded. I've been telling you, I've always liked you even before then. She pouted. Then why didn't you say anything before you went to China? I was stunned. Because it seemed like there was no chance. I thought you wouldn't see me as a romantic prospect. When I said this, she puffed her cheeks. It's not true, back then. I liked you. I almost shouted out loud but stopped myself. It's not good to yell in a small restaurant. What? As I was speechless, she looked down. Why would a woman go to dinner alone with a guy who she does not like? Normally. Hearing this, I held my head. Right, she was that kind of woman. Even if it was just a farewell party, her invitation indicated that there was a chance. I love you so much. The words naturally came out, and she blushed deeply. I'm sorry for being so dense. I'm sorry for wasting your time. Is it still okay if we start now? She nodded slightly. Truly, she had no confidence in being loved. If that's the case, I'll make her feel loved as much as possible from now on. That she is deeply loved. For a lifetime. 2 years have passed since then. Robert is crying. Emily's shout made me hurry over. Wait. If Robert is crying, look. Hannah started crying too. We are married and currently on parental leave, raising our twins. After getting married and considering our ages, we quickly sought fertility treatments and were blessed with twins, a boy and a girl. At 41, having twins was a concern, but the Queen of Ice bravely went through her pregnancy, worked hard until her maternity leave, and successfully gave birth to twins. She was divine after giving birth. Thank you for everything, I love you. When I expressed my gratitude, Emily let tears fall. I wonder if I deserve to be this happy. I'll never forget the moment she said that with tearful eyes. Today, Mark is coming over to celebrate the birth. I want kids soon too, says Mark, who doesn't even have a partner yet. I wonder how he'll react to the realities of parenting. How much will it deflate his pride? I'm a bit maliciously looking forward to it. As we soothe our little twins, I wonder if it's bad for their education to harbor such feelings. I hope these kids grow up straight and true, bathed in our love. Emily and I smiled at each other as we soothed our children together. Noticing something unusual about our atmosphere, nearly 30 classmates had gathered around us. Come to think of it, I haven't told you which company I work for yet. It's a big company, so I'm sure you know it, too, he said. My classmate Tom made a grand introduction, telling Emily, who was with me, the name of the company he works for. With about 30 classmates listening, he might have felt more confident. After talking loudly about himself, he suddenly turned to me and called me out. John, were you surprised to hear my company's name? If you're jealous, you should start job hunting and work for a better company. His rant attracted even more people. Watching this scene, I felt a sense of nostalgia. I remembered how, back in middle school, everyone would gather to protect Emily from Tom whenever he teased her. Then they tried to calm him down. My name is John, a single man in my 40s. I've never been good at studying, but I always preferred creating things on my own rather than following orders. Even though this could have made me seem selfish, I was fortunate to have classmates who never treated me as a troublemaker. On the contrary, I was often chosen to be the captain of the club or class representative, so people naturally looked to me as a leader. Although I didn't like being ordered around, I didn't enjoy giving orders either. So, talking things through with everyone and moving forward in a way that satisfied us all seemed to work well. I don't have any major regrets in my life and enjoyed my time in high school and college. Still, if I had to pick the most fulfilling time, it would be middle school. Today is a middle school reunion with those old friends. It's been 20 years since we last met when we were 20. Feeling excited, I headed to the hotel hosting the event. Hey, long time no see. You all haven't changed. I thought I arrived a bit early, but it seemed everyone else was already there. Like me, they must have been looking forward to today. While catching up with some classmates nearby, a cheerful voice came from behind. Looks like you're having fun. Talking about work? I turned around to see a familiar face. Dressed in a flashy suit with a luxurious scarf was Tom. His phone had an oddly childish charm hanging from it. At first, I didn't recognize him, but then I saw the distinctive mole by his eye and knew it was Tom. We had been chatting lively, but a few people made sour faces and left when they saw him. Tom, I didn't recognize you. You're all dressed up in that fancy suit. You guys haven't changed. Maybe you should pay more attention to your appearance. He mocked, looking us up and down. Well, the clothes you wear reflect who you are. You're probably not doing great jobs or making much money. Having a meal at a place like this must be a big expense for you. Ignoring the awkwardness around him, Tom continued his snide remarks. I could only manage a wry smile, but Tom shifted the conversation to work. By the way, you were talking about work earlier, right? What do you all do? Without waiting for answers, Tom started pointing at each person. You're really tanned, so you must be in construction. And you weren't bright, so you probably work in farming. You even smell a bit. You should take care of that. Annoyed by his disrespectful comments, I retorted. Hey, that's pretty rude. There's no such thing as a lowly job. Everyone's work is what keeps society going. You should watch your words. I couldn't hide my irritation and ended up speaking harshly. Feeling bad for dampening the reunion mood, I noticed Tom didn't seem to care at all. Why so serious? Are you doing manual labor too, John? You always acted like a big shot, but you were never that smart. He laughed, walking over to the group of women. Who does he think he is? Still as obnoxious as ever, some around me muttered. Tom had always disrupted the group's harmony, unable to read the room and eager to stand out. I guess some things never change. I shifted my focus and started reminiscing with my classmates. As the reunion began, the atmosphere grew lively, helped along by the alcohol. Back in middle school, communicating honestly with girls was tough because of puberty, but now it was nice to see we could all interact maturely. Sharing thoughts and impressions we couldn't express back then, and admitting we wanted to be closer, made for a wonderful time. When I heard my name, I turned to see Emily calling me. Emily. It's been a while. My voice got louder because Emily was actually my first crush. I wasn't the only one who found her attractive. She was the center of attention for many boys back then. Even after all these years, she looked remarkably youthful for someone in her 40s, with a mature elegance that made her even more captivating. You haven't changed at all, John, she said. Are you saying I haven't grown since middle school? As we exchanged lighthearted banter, I felt my heart race. My eyes were drawn to her hands, and I noticed she wasn't wearing a ring. So, is she still single? Not that I wanted to start dating her now, but knowing she was married would have stung. Even though it shouldn't matter to me now, I felt a strange relief seeing no ring, only to immediately dismiss my thoughts. Many married people don't wear rings. Given how attractive she is, she must have a wonderful husband and a lovely family. I wanted to ask about her husband but felt it was too intrusive. However, Emily asked directly, "Aren't you married?" I mistakenly thought she was interested in my marital status. Like her, I wasn't wearing a wedding ring. I quickly realized my silly assumption. Her question seemed purely polite, with no deeper meaning. Feeling a bit despondent, I replied, "No, I'm not. You might remember, I never had a girlfriend in middle school. Everyone had bad taste." I tried to sound humorous, smiling at her. Despite what I said, I wasn't unpopular with girls. Though I never had a girlfriend, a few girls did ask to go out. I never dated anyone because I genuinely loved Emily. Even seeing my friends with their girlfriends, I couldn't bring myself to date someone I didn't love. Maybe you were popular back then, but it was like how fast runners are popular in elementary school, she joked. Though said in jest, being compared to an elementary school crush was a bit disheartening. Sure, young love often revolved around looks, athletic ability, and social status. Yet, hearing this from still charming Emily made me feel somewhat rejected. Perhaps my feelings showed on my face. Emily quickly backtracked. "You didn't take that seriously, did you?" "Just joking." "Same as before, you were so earnest." Whether she meant it or not, her reassurance eased my mind. As we continued chatting over our meal, Tom interrupted again. "Emily. There you are. Hanging out with John must be boring. Come chat with me." Tom, the annoying guy, had arrived. He motioned for me to leave. Though I enjoyed talking with Emily, I figured she'd rather socialize with others, even if it was someone like Tom. Glancing at Emily, I saw her looking troubled. "John, go away. Aren't you starving? Go fill up while you can." Tom sneered, pushing me aside to sit next to Emily. She looked mildly annoyed but listened to him anyway. "I recently got promoted to management. Top guys always rise fast. It's just a different level of competence from everyone here," he boasted to Emily, who responded with polite nods. I watch and wait for the right moment to step in and help with the childish communication. Noticing the unusual atmosphere between the two, nearly 30 classmates had gathered around. "By the way, I haven't told you what company I work for yet, have I?" "It's a major company, so I'm sure you know it, Emily." Tom made a big deal of announcing the name of his company. Hearing the name, Emily looked at me in surprise. Tom must have known I was nearby. With about 30 classmates listening, Tom seemed to grow more confident. Raising his voice, Tom started talking about himself. He bragged about his high salary, the prestigious company he worked for, and how insignificant the rest of us were, completely ignoring the worsening atmosphere. Then he turned to me and called me out directly. "John, were you surprised to hear the name of my company? If you're jealous, why don't you start job hunting and get a better job?" Tom's ranting drew even more people. Watching this scene made me feel nostalgic. I remembered how in middle school, everyone would gather to protect Emily whenever Tom tried to bother her. And they started to speak up against Tom. There he goes again, trying to feel superior. "Yeah, he cornered me about my job and salary earlier too. Why is he picking a fight with John, anyway?" Their complaints reached Tom's ears. Annoyed, he turned to me with a threatening attitude. "People's worth is determined by the company they work for and how much they get paid. You can't stay on top forever just because you were cool in middle school." Hearing Tom's absurd statements made me feel embarrassed for him. He needed to be put in his place. "So, which branch do you work at? I'm starting to worry about your competence." "What? What are you trying to say?" While Tom looked puzzled, our classmates laughed at him. I wasn't boasting, but we had been sharing our work and family situations, so they understood the point of my question. Tom looked ridiculous, and it was hard not to laugh. "Why does it matter which branch? It doesn't make someone better if they work at the headquarters. What matters is the company you're in." Then Tom suddenly exclaimed, "Oh, John, are you trying to claim that it doesn't matter what job you have, but you care about being at the headquarters? Pathetic." His misguided remark caused a burst of laughter. Realizing something was off, but still not fully grasping the situation, I decided to clarify for him. It's not that the headquarters is superior. I respect those at the branches who contribute to the overall success. But I brought him back to reality. Someone with your attitude could tarnish the company's image. One person can cause a lot of damage. I tried to explain, but Tom didn't understand. His face turned red as he snapped back at me. You're mocking me. No one at my company would care about a complaint from someone like you. His defiance stirred up the crowd, cheering him on. Tom's outlandish comments were energizing the reunion. Hey, you should tell him the truth before he feels even worse later. Emily whispered to me. Tom's unintended entertainment was unexpected, but Emily was right. It was time to end this. You know, the company you work for is the one I founded. What? You're dreaming. There's no way you started a company like that. Further explanations seemed pointless. I was about to give up, but Emily showed Tom her phone screen. Look, it's right here. If you're so proud of your company, you should at least know the names and faces of the executives. Thanks to Emily's evidence, Tom finally understood. Turning pale, Tom weakly said, I didn't know. I might have misspoken, but could you forgive me for old time's sake? Tom's sudden change in attitude made the onlookers groan with annoyance. The classmates satisfied and started to disperse. Did you change your attitude because I'm the executive of the company? It's not about forgiveness. It's your attitude that's concerning. I get it, I really do reflect. I'm sorry, Tom stammered. Seeing that he didn't really understand, I sighed and spoke frankly. I'll make sure your boss knows. If you're doing your job well, there won't be any issues, but be mindful of how you express yourself. Your thoughts inevitably show in your words and actions. Standing straight and suddenly using formal language, Tom said, I understand. Emily chuckled at his abrupt change. Though I had been enjoying my conversation with Emily, Tom had soured the mood. I was about to leave when Emily suggested, let's continue our talk over there. Tom frowned at this. Are you hitting on a classmate just because you started a company? What's wrong with you? I just want to reminisce. Tom, who had been subdued, seemed to be feeling something different now. Thinking of how restless he was, I listened to him. Emily, don't just approach someone because he started a company. Judge them by their character. What are you talking about? I've been looking forward to seeing everyone, including John, long before I knew about his company. It's you who's been fixated on jobs and salaries since we got here. Tom could only groan in response to her valid argument. Suddenly, he held up his phone. I've kept this the whole time. It's the strap Emily gave me. Remember? For someone flaunting luxury brands, it seemed oddly childish for Tom to wear. However, it turned out to be a gift from Emily during middle school days. Tom, full of anticipation, watched for Emily's reaction. Emily exclaimed, "Oh," and revealed a shocking truth. I remember. I bought that on a trip in middle school. Yeah, I was so happy. Even though you never asked to go out, if your feelings haven't changed since then. Emily cut him off to explain. Immediately, Tom's face darkened. That souvenir was actually meant to be a gift for me. Emily had intended to secretly give it to me, but mistakenly put it in Tom's desk instead. She had attached a note to the keychain, simply stating it was bought on a trip, without addressing it to anyone. Tom saw it and assumed Emily had bought it for him. She wanted to correct the mistake, but seeing Tom proudly and mistakenly thinking it was for him made her too embarrassed to say anything. Hearing Emily's explanation, Tom looked completely dejected, staring at the keychain. I felt sorry for him, but then Tom said something unbelievable. But you don't hate me, right? If you are okay with it, I'd be willing to date you. Judging by his comment, it seemed Tom was single like me. But Emily likely already had a partner. Emily vigorously shook her head at his suggestion. No way. I could never be happy with someone who looks down on others based on their job or lacks empathy. Her blunt response made me laugh, but Tom wasn't ready to give up. Come on. I make good money, and you wouldn't struggle with me. Besides, it's worth a shot, right? We can figure out the details later. I almost admired Tom's self-confidence. Emily decisively crushed his ego. Absolutely not. I don't need to try to know you're a shallow man. Besides, I've heard everything you own is on credit, right? So what if it is? I earned the money, and it shows I have creditworthiness. Emily gave a wry smile at his shallow reasoning. I can't be with someone who lives on credit and struggles to make payments. Our views on money are too different. Find someone who shares your values or stay single. Tom finally slumped in defeat. Feeling sorry for him, I tried to be kind. Tom, why not find someone looking for a partner instead of someone like Emily, who already has a happy family? You'll find someone good. I was trying to help him. But Tom, with tears in his eyes, retorted. What are you talking about? Emily is single. That's not encouraging at all. Just go away. Surprised, I looked at Emily, who appeared unfazed. Her lack of denial meant she was single like me. I focused too much on work and missed the chance to get married. I thought I'd be married with kids by now, but things don't always go as planned. Same here. I never imagined I'd be working and coming home to an empty house. We both laughed at our self-deprecating remarks. Emily and I continued our enjoyable conversation, and before I knew it, Tom had disappeared. Later, I contacted the branch where Tom worked to check on his job performance. As expected, he was obsequious to his superiors but condescending to juniors, worsening the work environment. After his promotion, this behavior had become more pronounced, causing issues for the staff. I quickly reached out to HR to investigate the workplace environment and performance. Depending on the results, his branch might need a personnel review. Not knowing what would happen, I hoped for a positive outcome as I waited for the results. Eventually, his internal evaluation revealed severe issues, including compliance violations. The problems extended beyond the company, with numerous customer complaints about his conduct. He was promptly demoted, had his salary cut, and was removed from any customer-facing roles. A few months later, a follow-up revealed he had resigned and presumably moved on to a new job. I hoped he had taken the time to reflect and approach his work with a fresh mindset. But no one from our class had heard from him. The reunion sparked a regular meeting between Emily and me, and we got excited about going on a trip during the next holiday. As we parted ways after a meal, Emily expressed her thoughts. Remember the souvenir that mistakenly ended up with Tom in middle school? I want to visit that place again. When I asked why, she said she felt sorry for her middle school self and thought choosing and buying a souvenir together now would make her younger self feel better. I was genuinely happy to hear that. That sounds great. If my middle school self knew he'd get to experience this in the future, he'd be overjoyed. As I laughed, Emily asked with a serious face, "Isn't the present you happy too?" Feeling my heart rate increase, I replied sincerely, "Of course, I'm happy." Hearing this, Emily smiled and went home. Watching her leave, I placed my hand over my rapidly beating heart. Why don't you at least wear a suit, you poor guy? Don't tell me you don't have one. Jason laughed loudly as he said this to me. Our classmates, who had been reminiscing with us, looked surprised. I do have a suit, I retorted, irritated by Jason's words. I couldn't understand why I had to be annoyed in this pleasant place. Jason had always looked down on me. It was time to make him understand. I made a decision. My name is Mark, and I'm 30 years old. When I was a child, I moved frequently because of my dad's job. When I was in the 6th grade, my dad got another transfer, and we moved to a rural area. Sorry for another transfer, but this should be the last one, my dad told me happily. Though transferring schools was always tough for me, who was shy and introverted, I remember feeling relieved that it would be the last time. The middle school I transferred to was much smaller than my previous one, but my classmates were kind, and I was excited about my new life. However, there was one person who didn't think well of me. That was Jason. Hey, nerd. Stop studying all the time. Jason would always pick on me. I was just copying notes. Shut up. Don't talk back, especially since you don't even have a mom. Jason yelled at me. My mom had passed away when I was young due to illness. I, too, wanted to see and talk to my mom if I could. But that was impossible. Hey, Jason. Don't say that. When I looked sad, my classmates often stood up for me. That didn't sit well with Jason, and his bullying continued until we graduated middle school. If I got good grades on a test, he would cause a scene, saying, "You probably cheated, didn't you?" And when I got a good time in track and field, he would shout, "You false started, do it again," causing trouble for everyone around. Jason just really disliked me. I spent my middle school years avoiding him. A turning point came when it was time to choose high schools. I heard rumors that Jason was going to a prestigious school out of state, so I decided to apply to a nearby high school. Finally, I would be free from Jason. That's all I could think about. As planned, Jason and I went to different high schools, and I didn't have to deal with him anymore. I felt an indescribable sense of happiness. I made new friends and enjoyed high school life. I joined the track team and spent my afternoons training with my teammates. My high school life was a stark contrast to my middle school one, filled with joy and fulfillment. After a happy high school life, I graduated and got a job at a sewing factory. Although I wanted to go to college, I didn't want to burden my dad, who had raised me alone. My dad encouraged me to go to college, but I declined and started working at the factory. I got a job at a sewing factory for an apparel company. I wasn't particularly interested in clothing, but it was the only company that would hire a high school graduate like me. Before working there, I had never touched a sewing machine or known anything about making clothes. But my supervisors and colleagues patiently taught me everything. 5 years after joining, I finally mastered all the tasks in the factory. "Mark, I'm struggling with this part. I'll handle this. It should be done this way." "I see. You've really improved lately, Mark." "I can't slack off," Emily said with a smile. Despite having no particular talents, I became knowledgeable about sewing. My colleagues came to rely on me. Until that day, I had been living a fulfilling life. But then, one day, something happened. I went to work at the factory as usual and started planning today's tasks with Emily. Suddenly, there was a commotion at the factory entrance. "Is there something special happening today?" Curious, I asked Emily. Emily looked puzzled too. "Mr. Smith mentioned we have an important deal today." I glanced towards the factory entrance. And there he was. The last person I wanted to see, Jason, was standing there. I rubbed my eyes and looked again, but there was no mistake, it was Jason. Why is he here? I kept my head down and focused on my work, avoiding eye contact. "Thank you for coming all this way. It's a crucial deal, so it's only natural." Mr. Smith shows modesty toward Jason. Then, I noticed that Jason's voice, while talking to Mr. Smith, was gradually getting closer to me. When I looked up, Jason was right in front of me, smiling. He had found me. I had a bad feeling. "So, you're working here. I heard you started working right after high school, but at a factory?" That's hilarious. I ignored Jason's words and continued working. Mr. Smith, surprised, spoke to Jason. "You know each other?" "Mark is a hardworking and valuable member of our team." Jason laughed loudly again. "You say this guy is valuable?" "In middle school, he was a total failure and always caused trouble for everyone." "Unbelievable." Mr. Smith's expression hardened. Emily, working beside me, looked at Jason with a puzzled expression. "A failure." "Yes, it's true." "Right, Mark?" Jason suddenly directed his words at me. Annoyed, I said, "I don't remember causing trouble for anyone." "Stop spreading lies." Jason's expression turned slightly angry. "I'm not lying. You've always been a failure. How dare you talk back to me?" I was at a loss for words. Then, Jason said something shocking. "Mr. Smith, if you want to do business with my company, fire him. With him around, your company won't succeed. He's a curse." The factory fell silent. My colleagues stared at Jason in disbelief. Mr. Smith took a deep breath and then said, "Let's discuss this over some coffee," and led Jason to the office. I couldn't understand why Jason thought he had the authority to get me fired. He had always tried to control everything his way. As I sighed, Emily looked at me with concern. Don't let what he says bother you. He's really an awful person, she said gently while continuing her work. He's always hated me. I guess he just wants to mess with me again. For the past 5 years, I had worked tirelessly at this factory, and Mr. Smith knew it. Even though Jason, the client representative, wanted me fired, I was confident that Mr. Smith wouldn't let me go. But that confidence was quickly shattered. That evening, Mr. Smith called me into his office. I had never been called in before, so I entered the office with curiosity. Mr. Smith looked a bit down. Then he spoke heavily. Mark, I'm sorry, but could you take some time off until the deal with TA Corp is finalized? What? I couldn't believe my ears. I never expected Mr. Smith to say something like this. He continued. You know how important the contract with TA Corp is for this company, right? TA Corp was a famous apparel company known throughout the industry. I remembered Emily mentioning that this deal involved millions of dollars. Yes. Jason seems to have a grudge against you. If we lose the contract because of that, it would be a huge loss for the company. But I don't want to fire you, so could you please take a break until the deal is done? I want to make it seem like you've been fired. I could only nod at Mr. Smith's desperate plea. I couldn't understand why I had to take a break despite not doing anything wrong. But for Mr. Smith and the company's sake, I had to comply. For the next week, I stayed home. I couldn't focus on anything. I had asked Emily to cover my tasks, but I worried if she'd be okay. Then, I got a call from Emily. She had a task she couldn't figure out. I tried to explain it over the phone, but it wasn't working, so I reluctantly headed to the factory. I sneaked into the factory and approached Emily. Mark, I'm so sorry to bother you during your break, Emily said apologetically in a small voice. I discreetly showed her how to complete the task, avoiding the other colleagues. Emily understood and thanked me. As I was about to leave without being noticed, an incident occurred. At the entrance was Jason. Jason looked surprised. Then he shouted, "What are you doing here? Weren't you fired? Damn." I instinctively stepped back. Hearing my voice, Mr. Smith came out of the office. He looked troubled. Mark, I just came to pick up something I forgot. I quickly lied to Jason. Jason snorted and said, "See? Everyone is annoyed by you. There's no place that will hire a high school graduate like you. Now get out of here." Mr. Smith just stood there silently, watching. What had I ever done to Jason? I was fed up with him. Something snapped inside me. Jason, why do you always target me? I've never done anything to you. I couldn't hold it in any longer and shouted. My coworkers looked at me with concern. Emily, in particular, looked like she was about to run over, her face full of worry. Jason, however, was completely unfazed by my words and said, "I hate you because you've never put in any effort. Do you have any idea how hard I worked to get where I am? Meanwhile, you just drifted along with an easy job after high school. You think I haven't put in any effort? Give me a break. Do you know how hard I've worked at this factory?" Jason laughed. Anyone can work in a factory. No matter how hard I tried to talk to Jason, it never got through to him. I realized that at that moment. Talking to him was a waste of time. I ran out of there. Even as I left, Jason kept laughing at me. As I ran, I made a decision. A few days later, I called Mr. Smith and told him I was quitting. I couldn't let the company suffer because of me. Mr. Smith desperately tried to convince me to stay, but my mind was made up. I started looking for a new job, but it was tough and frustrating not finding anything right away. My dad encouraged me, saying, "You've worked hard until now, so why not take a break? Life is long. It won't hurt to rest a bit." Inspired by my dad's words, I took a year to do what I wanted. I had saved more than average from my 5 years of hard work. I decided to take my time finding a new job. When I finally found a new job, everything fell into place smoothly. I started working hard again. 6 years passed, and I turned 30. Life was good, and work was going well. One day, I arranged to meet up with Robert, an old middle school friend, at a cafe. Robert was my best friend in middle school. Since we also went to the same high school, we were as close as brothers, and even after graduation, we would occasionally meet up to catch up. He now worked for an international company and traveled around the world. I was thrilled when Robert reached out to meet. "Hey! Long time no see." Robert greeted me cheerfully. "It's been 2 years since we last met before your overseas assignment." Catching up with Robert was nostalgic, and we had a great time talking. "Hey, why aren't you coming to the reunion?" Robert suddenly asked. I couldn't understand what Robert was talking about. Reunion? A month ago, there was an invitation sent out. Jason and I were the organizers, and Jason said you weren't coming. This was news to me. I never received any invitation. It had to be Jason deliberately leaving me out. I never got an invitation. Jason probably didn't send it on purpose. He doesn't want me there. Robert looked shocked. Really? I thought you just didn't want to attend. That's awful of Jason. Robert angrily sipped his coffee. Jason's always been a jerk. Actually, I told Robert everything that happened 6 years ago. He looked at me, incredulous. I can't believe that happened. I'm at a loss for words. Yeah, that's true. But thanks to him, I am who I am today. So, I've let go of the past. Jason was indeed a jerk, but because of him, I became stronger. If it weren't for Jason, I might have remained insecure and untalented. After 6 years, I began to see it that way. So, what about the reunion? Jason will be there, will you skip on it? Robert asked, concerned about me. I laughed and said to Robert, since it's a good opportunity, I'll join you. Robert nodded happily. Honestly, I was a bit scared to see Jason again. He'd probably just make snide comments. But I wasn't the same person I was 6 years ago. I decided to attend the reunion with confidence. I promised to meet Robert at the reunion and then we parted ways. I was really grateful to Robert. If I hadn't met Robert today, I wouldn't have known about the reunion. Thinking about seeing old classmates again, I went home. On the day of the reunion, I wore a new shirt. Seeing me, my dad commented, "You're not wearing a suit. The reunion's at a 5-star hotel, right?" He looked worried. It was natural for my dad to be worried. Since the venue was a 5-star hotel, I needed to dress appropriately. But I didn't want to wear a suit on my day off. So, I chose a shirt that was casual but still suitable for the hotel. "I'm going like this." "Don't worry." Dad still looked concerned. "But Jason will be there, right? Won't he say something nasty again?" I had told my dad everything that happened 6 years ago. He still held a grudge against Jason. I reassured him, even if he does, I won't let it bother me. Dad seemed reassured and said no more. I left home, looking forward to seeing my old classmates. My steps were light. When I entered the hotel, I was greeted by a grand chandelier and a luxurious atmosphere. Excitedly, I headed to the hotel restaurant. "Mark! Thanks for coming." Robert ran up to me, looking delighted. "Hey! I'm excited today." I smiled along with Robert. We entered the restaurant together. The restaurant was reserved for the reunion, with a lavish spread of food. Even before the reunion officially started, many familiar faces were already catching up and having fun. Seeing me, some classmates came over, excited. "Mark! It's been since middle school, right? So good to see you." They chatted happily. We reminisced about funny and silly middle school stories. Before I knew it, the reunion had begun and more classmates arrived. "By the way, isn't Jason amazing?" A classmate suddenly brought up Jason. "What's amazing about him?" I asked. As I listened with interest, my classmate began speaking quickly. "He's apparently the sales manager at TA Corp." TA Corp, that huge company? Jason has always been smart, the top achiever. And he's also advancing deals with that major apparel manufacturer. I see. Jason became a manager shortly after I left my previous job. Well, it didn't really matter to me. As I was thinking this, the restaurant entrance grew even more lively. Speak of the devil. At the entrance stood Jason. He was wearing an impressive suit. I instinctively looked away. Jason didn't know I was attending this reunion. In fact, he had intended not to invite me. If he found out I was here, he'd probably lose it. I looked at Robert. Robert whispered, "You've done nothing wrong, Mark. Just hold your head high." Thanks to Robert's words, I felt a bit more at ease. There was no need to cater to Jason at all. "Thanks, Robert," I said, continuing to talk with him. Soon, Jason spotted me, looking at me as if he had seen a ghost. He never expected me to be here. He shouted loudly, "Why are you here? You weren't invited." Jason was red-faced with anger. "Robert invited me. I have every right to attend our middle school reunion, don't I?" Jason immediately responded, "I don't consider you a classmate. You're being audacious by coming here without my permission." His words caused a stir among our classmates. "You don't belong here." Good grief! How much more would he insult me before he was satisfied? I was exhausted. "So, if I leave, will that make you happy?" Jason snorted. "Yeah, that's right. Get out of here. And that outfit is way too casual for this venue." I had talked to a few classmates, so I decided to leave as Jason suggested. Then Jason added another snide remark. "At least wear a suit, you poor guy. Don't tell me you don't own one?" I was speechless. What on earth was he talking about? I do have a suit. I just didn't want to wear one on my day off. Jason laughed even harder at my words. I couldn't understand what he found so funny. "Stop pretending. You couldn't afford a suit, could you? Admit it, you're poor." I was stunned by his harsh words. There was nothing more to say. I turned to leave. Then, Jason said something unforgivable. "Hey! Want my old suit? It's so expensive you'd never be able to afford it even if you worked your whole life." I was inwardly furious but kept my cool and continued listening. "If you want a suit like mine, get a job at a famous company like I did. But you're too incompetent for that." I reached my breaking point. Why did I have to put up with this? But just as I was about to shout, Robert raised his voice. "He doesn't need your hand-me-down suit." I was surprised. Robert had always been gentle, and I had never seen him yell. Yet here he was, standing up for me. I nearly dropped my drink in surprise. Jason glared at Robert, equally surprised. "Hand me down? This suit is from KG Industries, the company my firm is about to do business with. There's no way someone like Mark could get a suit like this. Jason, I'm afraid I have to cancel that deal." For a moment, the room fell silent. "What?" It seemed like Jason didn't hear what I said. "So be it." I repeated myself. "I'm asking you to cancel the deal between your company and mine." The room was dead quiet. "What are you talking about? My company doesn't do business with you. Do you really not recognize me? You don't know anything, do you?" I asked, but Jason just laughed. "What are you implying?" "You're just incompetent, Mark, nothing more." I took out my business card and handed it to Jason, who couldn't understand anything I said. "Sorry for the late introduction. I'm Mark Davis, president of KG Industries. I've decided to cancel the collaboration between our companies." "What?" "President of KG Industries." Jason turned pale. Robert laughed and said, "See? That's why Mark doesn't need your suit. He's got plenty of his own." As I said, I am the president of KG Industries, a major suit manufacturer. The incident 6 years ago had set me on this path. After quitting my job, I struggled to find new work. But fortunately, I had savings, so I decided to take it easy and made a suit for my dad. My dad wore suits to work every day, and I wanted to create a stylish suit for him. When I gave it to him, he was thrilled, and I felt proud. My dad wore the suit I made for him to work the next day. When he came home that evening, he asked if I could make 2 more. Apparently, his colleagues loved it and wanted one too. Of course, I made suits for my dad's colleagues as well. The next day, someone else asked for one. This kept happening, and more people wanted suits made by me. Within a month, I had dozens of orders. I was amazed at how popular my suits had become. Seeing this, my dad suggested, "Why don't you start a company?" With my own factory, I would surely be able to meet the demand faster. I decided to establish a company. It required a lot of money, and I took on debt, but people kept wanting my unique, stylish suits, and the business quickly grew. In just 6 years, my company went public and became a well-known suit manufacturer. One day, Mr. Harris, the president of TA Corp, contacted me directly. He said he definitely wanted to collaborate on a product with my company. Collaborating with a major apparel company like TA Corp would greatly increase my company's visibility. Mr. Harris, the president of TA Corp, was very enthusiastic and even said that he wouldn't spare any expense for the collaboration. Though the past troubles with Jason, a TA Corp employee, crossed my mind, I decided to focus on the company's future and went ahead with the deal. However, knowing that Jason was with TA Corp, I started thinking that continuing this deal wasn't an option. I never wanted to deal with such a rude person again. When Jason found out I was the president of KG Industries, he began to sweat and apologize profusely. "I didn't know you were the president. Please forgive me." I ignored him and started to leave the venue. Jason followed me and stood in front of me. "Come on, I'm sorry. It's my fault." It was too late for apologies. I sighed. "It's too late. I won't forgive you." Jason then shouted, "We're friends, right? How can you be so heartless? If Mr. Harris finds out this deal was cancelled because of me, I'll get fired. Can you live with that?" Jason still acted arrogantly. I took out my phone and made a call. Jason watched me, puzzled. "Hello? I'm sorry, but I have to cancel our deal." "What? What's going on?" "Your employee, Jason, has been too disrespectful. I can't proceed with the contract." The person I called was Mr. Harris of TA Corporation. When Jason realized this, he panicked and collapsed to his knees. "I'll remove Jason from the project. Can't you reconsider, please?" "No, I have already made a decision." I hung up the phone. Jason, realizing it was pointless, sat there silently. I leaned down and looked at him. "I have one last question." Jason stayed silent. But I continued speaking. There was something I had to know. "Why have you always looked down on me? I never did anything to you. Didn't you realize how cruel you were?" When I glared at him, he quietly replied, "I was jealous of how you seemed to succeed so effortlessly. No one but the person themselves knows how much effort they've put in. The fact that you treated me so horribly because of that is terrible. Reflect on how much you've hurt me." With that, Robert and I left the venue. Apparently, Jason continued to cry pathetically. We walked out, feeling relieved. I finally said what I had wanted to say to Jason for so long. "Thanks, Robert." I was grateful to him for being there. He smiled awkwardly and said, "We're friends. It's only natural to help each other out." Later, Mr. Harris and Jason came to apologize to my company. I apologize for Jason's behavior. I will transfer him to a regional office and make sure he fully reflects on his actions. Please forgive us. Mr. Harris deeply apologized to me. Beside him, Jason also apologized. "I'm sorry. I'll reflect on my actions and never behave like that again." I sighed and looked at Emily, my secretary. She whispered, "They seem genuinely sorry. Maybe you should forgive them this time?" Seeing this, Jason was astonished. "You're from back then?" "Yes, when I established my company, I brought Emily on board. Having her around was reassuring, and I wanted to work with her. Moreover, Emily and I had gotten married and were now husband and wife." "It's nice to meet you," Emily said, shaking hands with them politely. After that, Mr. Harris and I continued our discussion and decided to proceed with the deal. Jason, as Mr. Harris promised, was transferred to a regional office and never appeared before me again. I heard that in his new position, he had a complete change of his mind and dedicated himself to his work. I hoped he would continue living without causing trouble for others. The brand that my company and TA Corp co-developed became a massive hit, creating a huge sensation. All the products became million sellers, generating billions in profit for my company. I couldn't be more grateful to Emily, knowing that none of this success would have been possible without her words. From now on, I will continue to make this company even better and ensure her happiness. Excuse me, you always sit next to me, don't you? I spoke to her softly, mindful of the people around us. It was the usual time on the usual subway. Every morning on the first train, she would always sit next to me in my regular spot. I'm sorry, am I bothering you? She started to cry when I asked her. As I hurriedly apologized, she told me an unexpected story. My name is David, 27 years old. I'm about to turn 28 soon, and for the past 4 years, my mother has always asked me if I have a girlfriend around my birthday. Tonight, as I was eating dinner after work, she asked me again. David, do you have a girlfriend yet? I've been asking you every year, but you've never had one. Stop making excuses about not needing anyone and try harder. She must have been really worried about me not having a girlfriend. Recently, she has been persuading me with a serious tone. I know, but I really haven't met anyone, and besides, I'm so into my work right now that I can't be that proactive. I believe that one day I'll meet my destined one. I should have just agreed with her, but I ended up honestly expressing my thoughts. Naturally, my mother didn't stay quiet. What are you talking about? You're not getting any younger. If you keep saying that, you'll be 40 or 50 before you know it. Get serious. I won't be around forever, you know. Sorry, I apologize. I scratched my head and apologized. I've loved reading since I was a kid and have read many kinds of novels, especially romance novels. It's kind of embarrassing for a guy to like romance novels, so when people ask about my hobbies, I just say reading broadly. I'll make a serious effort to find someone. My mother looked very satisfied with my declaration. I'm glad I've been nagging you for almost 4 years. I'll wait in moderate expectation so I don't get too tired out. I'll do my best. After working a bit, I went to bed early, and the next day, I took the subway to work. Since I get on at the first station, I can always get a seat. Though it's not a designated spot, I always sit in my usual seat. Darn, I'm sleepy. I mumbled to myself, feeling very tired. Work has been busy lately, and I've been taking work home. It's not just me, everyone involved in the project is in the same situation. We all want to make something great, so no one is compromising. Though it's tough, I love and appreciate this environment where everyone shares the same passion for the work. As I was thinking about the tasks ahead at work, I heard a tapping sound. Looking up, I saw a woman walking with a white cane. I thought she would pass by, but she suddenly stopped. I couldn't help but keep my eyes on her. Wondering what was happening, I watched as she gently sat down in the seat next to me. It was fine, but I wondered why she chose the seat next to mine when there were other empty seats. This is my stop. When the announcement for my stop came, I cracked my neck. I prepared myself for the day ahead with renewed determination. As I stood up, I glanced at the woman with the white cane who was still seated. I felt it might be rude to stare, but she had a beautiful face and seemed about my age, with a dignified presence. At first, she was just someone who happened to sit next to me, but she continued to sit next to me the next day, and the day after that. And also the day after that. Initially, I didn't think much of it, but gradually, I began to notice. The next day, when I got on the subway again, she appeared. With her white cane tapping, she sat next to me again but stumbled slightly, bumping into me. I'm sorry. Oh, no, it's fine. Are you okay? When I spoke to her, she looked embarrassed. I'm fine. I'm really sorry for stumbling. Don't worry about it. I'm glad you're okay. When I answered her, she said, "Thank you." After that, we didn't have any more conversation. But the next day, and the day after that, and also the day after that, she continued to sit next to me. Even though there were other seats available, why did she always choose the seat next to me? Puzzled, I decided to talk to my mother about it as if it were just casual conversation. Mom, there's this woman with a white cane who sits next to me on the subway every morning. even though there are plenty of empty seats. My mother looked puzzled. That's strange. She can sit wherever she wants, but it is suspicious. Why don't you try sitting somewhere else tomorrow? Maybe I will. It's not that I mind, but I'm just curious. Yes, try sitting in a different seat and see what happens. I agreed with her suggestion and said, I'll do that. The next morning, I got on the subway as usual but sat in a different seat. I pulled out my planner to check my schedule for the day when I heard the tapping sound again. I looked up from my planner and saw her walking towards me. She approached the seat I usually sat in and seemed about to sit down but stopped abruptly. Then, tapping her cane again, she started walking through the subway car. She stopped right in front of where I was sitting in a different seat. Just as I suspected, she sat down next to me again. Seriously? I thought, but getting up now would seem rude, so I stayed put and continued reading my planner. When I got off at my station, I glanced at her, but she seemed unchanged. I got off the train and went about my day. Really? What do you think is going on? You haven't done anything to her, right? After explaining the day's events to my mother when I got home, she still found it mysterious but concluded that it must not be my fault. Of course not. I've never done anything. At least, not that I can remember. Maybe she sees things differently, though. My mother agreed, seeming to understand. That's true. Even if you think you haven't done anything, it might be different from her perspective. I thought about it again, but I couldn't come up with any explanation. Maybe I'll try sitting in another seat again tomorrow. I guess I shouldn't worry about it. Sorry, I've got some work to finish up tonight. So I might be up late. Could you wake me up if I don't get up? Sure, no problem. Busy, huh? I'll wake you up as usual in the morning. Thanks. I appreciate it. I'll set an alarm, but just in case. After asking my mother, I washed the dishes, took a bath, and went to my room. I had an important meeting the next day. The company I work for, Harris Trading Company, is quite a major player among trading firms. I'm part of a project team led by our manager, James. With final adjustments and meetings, the schedule was really tight, and today had been especially busy. I hope I can get at least 3 hours of sleep. I muttered as I started working on my tasks. The last thing I remembered was it being 2 a.m. Hey, wake up. It's time, David. My mother's voice somehow roused me from sleep. My alarm had apparently stopped at some point, and I was grateful to my past self for asking my mother to wake me. Rubbing my sleepy eyes, I got on the subway to go to work. Usually, I'd be wide awake by the time I got moving, but today I just couldn't wake up. This is bad, I'm so sleepy today. I decided to close my eyes for just a bit, and then I heard the tapping sound again. Suddenly, I felt a strong shake on my shoulder, and I woke up in a panic. Excuse me, are you okay? You usually get off at this station, right? Huh? Oh, yes, I do. As I struggled to comprehend the situation, she spoke to me again. In front of me was the woman who always sat next to me, looking desperate. Please, wake up. Isn't this your stop? Oh. You're right, I need to get off. Thank you. Indeed, the doors had just opened at my usual stop. I quickly thanked her and slipped out before the doors closed. That was really close. I owe her one. As I glanced back at the subway, I saw her smile with relief. That sight gave me a strange feeling, but I started running towards my office. Your proposal is great. Please go ahead and proceed with it. Thank you, I'll do it that way. I concluded the online meeting with a firm statement, and everyone exchanged greetings before ending the call. Au revoir, I said as I disconnected, and cheers erupted from the people around me. That went well. As I slumped into my chair, James patted me on the shoulder. Thank you so much, David. You did a great job. Thank you for all your guidance, James. I stood up and thanked him. And he responded with a smile. No, it was all thanks to the hard work of you and everyone else. James is not only capable at his job but is very respectable as a boss and simply as a person. He's always polite and pleasant, never making a face even when we ask questions. Not having to worry about the boss's mood makes it much easier for us to work. He's helped me out many times. I'm really glad you were the leader of this project. Thank you so much. Let's have a celebration with everyone. I'm happy to hear that. Thanks. Many of our team members have families, so how about a lunch celebration tomorrow? Of course. Right, everyone? Yeah, lunch works better for me too. Thanks a lot. Thanks to you, James, I was able to go home earlier and make my wife happy. Really? That's great to hear. Make sure to take good care of your wife. Yes, thank you. We then cleaned up the conference room and left the office early, even though it was before the end of the workday. It was a thoughtful gesture from James. I gratefully left the office and headed home. On the way, I bought a cake my mother likes. I'm home. Hearing my voice, my mother came to the entrance. She looked a bit surprised to see me. Oh, you're home early. What's the occasion? Our meeting went well, so James, our leader, let us go home early. I handed her the cake box, and she was delighted. Thank you. Let's have some tea. Go wash your hands. You know, it's a mystery how a considerate guy like you doesn't have a girlfriend. I pretended not to hear her last comment and went to wash my hands. While eating cake with my mother at the table, we talked about the woman on the subway. I'm really grateful. Who knows what would have happened if I had missed my stop? That was very kind of her. You should thank her properly if she sits next to you again tomorrow. I agreed firmly with my mother's words. I thought so too, and maybe I could also ask why she always sits next to me. The next day, as usual, I boarded the subway, and the tapping sound signaled her arrival. She sat next to me. After she sat down, I gathered my courage and spoke to her. Excuse me, thank you for yesterday. Thanks to you, I didn't miss my stop and was able to get to work on time. When I spoke to her, she turned towards me and sighed in relief. Really? That's good. I wasn't sure what to do, but you always get off at that station, and you didn't seem like you were going to stand up. I had an important meeting yesterday, so I was really busy and sleep deprived. That must have been tough. Did the meeting go well? Yes, thanks to you, it went great. I'm really grateful. Sorry, I haven't introduced myself yet. My name is David. I work at a trading company in the city. Hearing my introduction, she introduced herself as well. Oh, I'm sorry for not introducing myself earlier. I'm Emily. I'm a painter. People are often surprised that I can paint despite being blind. But I manage. Emily smiled warmly. I was just about to ask that question. People often ask, so I usually explain beforehand. It surprises everyone. As she laughed softly, I felt like I could ask her the question that had been on my mind. This might seem strange to ask, but I've been curious. Why do you always sit next to me? Is there a reason for that? Her face darkened at my question, and I panicked as tears started to fall from her eyes. Oh, I'm really sorry. Are you okay? I didn't mean to offend you. I quickly apologized to her. Even though it was the first station, people were getting on, and those who boarded started giving me suspicious looks. Of course, they must have thought I did something to make her cry. It's okay, really. I'm sorry. There is a reason, but it might sound silly to others. She seemed to be thinking while wiping her tears. Seeing her like that, I made a suggestion. If you don't mind, how about we meet up sometime? I'd like to give you my contact information. I gave her my phone number. She entered it into her phone. I think I've saved it correctly. Is that okay? I confirmed that the number was correct and told her it was fine. At that moment, my station arrived. Well, I need to get off here. I'll be in touch. Thank you. I'll be waiting. When I got home, I told my mother about it over dinner. As expected, she scolded me. What were you thinking, making a girl cry like that? I apologized right away. She seemed to have a reason, but I couldn't really ask her on the subway. So, I suggested meeting up another day. My mother seemed to understand but was still a bit upset. That was a good decision, but make sure you properly apologize to her. Yeah, I'll make sure to apologize. I really am sorry. After dinner, I felt a bit nervous but called her. She answered after about 3 rings. Hello, this is Emily. Hi, it's David. I'm really sorry about this morning. I'm off this Saturday, are you free then? Oh, no need to apologize. I'm free too. Where should we meet? How about the cafe near Prince Street Station? They have great scones. If we catch the 9:45 train, we'll get there just as they open. That sounds wonderful. I love scones. See you at 9:45 then. We made plans to meet on Saturday. Seeing me busy preparing in the morning, my mother smirked. Look at you, all excited. You seem to be putting in a lot of effort just to meet someone. It's nothing like that. Even if she can't see, it's important to be presentable when meeting someone. I'm off. I told my mother and left to catch the 9:45 train. On the subway, I sat in my usual seat, and soon enough, I heard the tapping sound and saw her coming. She was wearing a floral dress and looked even more adorable than usual. My heart skipped a beat. Good morning. Good morning. I've been looking forward to today. Me too. I'm excited for today. As we chatted and laughed, the subway started moving, and after about 10 minutes, we arrived at our stop. I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to assist you properly. What should I do? I asked honestly, and Emily kindly explained what to do. Could you walk half a step ahead and let me hold onto your elbow? Got it. Like this? I walked half a step ahead and offered her my elbow. Feeling her gently place her hand on my arm, I began to walk slowly. Is this pace okay? It's perfect. Thank you. We made our way slowly towards the cafe known for its delicious scones. As we got closer, the delightful smell filled the air. It smells wonderful. It already seems delicious from the aroma. Seeing her excitement made me happy too. Yes, I've been curious about this place for a while and wanted to come. When we entered the cafe, the staff cleared any unnecessary chairs to make it easier for her to navigate and led us to our table. After settling down, I opened the menu. Let me read the menu for you. I read the menu and described the various scones and drinks to her. Everything sounded delicious. I'll have the iced Darjeeling tea and a scone set, please. I'll have the hot milk tea and a chocolate scone. We placed our orders and waited for our food. This is really nice. It's a strange but wonderful coincidence that brought us together. When I said that, Emily smiled warmly. Truly a coincidence. Actually, the reason I always sat next to you is because your cologne is the same as my ex-boyfriend's. Oh, I see. Your ex-boyfriend. I wasn't born blind. I lost my sight in an accident. We were coming back from a trip when it happened. Fortunately, he was only lightly injured. But I lost my sight. Emily's story was quite shocking. She told me she was also 27 and had the accident at 18, during her last year of high school. They had both been excited about going to the same university. And the accident happened during their graduation trip. He felt a lot of responsibility for what happened. I heard him apologizing to my parents many times. It was hard for me. But my family and he supported me as I slowly tried to move forward. But I gently continued where she hesitated. Did he leave? Emily showed a sad expression. Maybe he felt too much guilt. He wrote me a letter in Braille saying he was sorry for not being able to make me happy and for running away. I see. At first, I felt betrayed, but when I calmed down, I realized it was understandable. Understandable? An 18-year-old boy can't bear such a heavy burden. We weren't married, we were just dating. He had dreams of becoming a lawyer. If I were in his position, I might have run away too. Emily took a sip of her Darjeeling tea and smiled, saying it was delicious. I decided I had to manage my life on my own. I had to work hard and become independent. That's incredible. You turned that determination into becoming a successful artist. I tried to imagine myself in her situation, but I couldn't. If it were me, I might have stayed down forever. The thought of suddenly losing my sight was terrifying. I'd like to say I've become mentally strong, but sitting next to someone because they wear the same cologne as my ex isn't very strong, is it? It's embarrassing to admit I can't forget someone I loved. Emily laughed, but I felt strongly that it wasn't embarrassing, and I expressed it directly. It's not embarrassing at all. Those memories must be really important to you, right? When someone means that much to you, it's not easy to forget them. Drawing on my own limited experiences with love, I spoke earnestly. Though I haven't had many relationships, I do have someone I can't forget. So please, don't feel bad about those feelings. The fact that you always sit next to me because of that cologne shows how precious those memories are. You must have really loved him. If you don't mind, can you tell me more about him? Emily looked surprised at my request. You want to hear about him? Yes, since he was someone you loved so much, he must have been an amazing person. I'd love to hear what he was like, his personality, his appearance, and any memorable stories you have. Understanding my intention, Emily smiled. I see. Well, he was quite charming. Are you sure you want to hear this? Her face had a mischievous and excited expression. She looked more alive than ever. Of course, please tell me. All right then. His name was Michael. He was really handsome, like a prince straight out of a love romance comic. People often said he looked like one of the idols from popular boys groups. Emily mentioned a well-known idol who was indeed very handsome. Wow, he must have been really good looking. You have a beautiful face yourself, so I'm sure you two made a great couple. Complimenting her appearance naturally, I saw her face light up with happiness. Do you really think so? Thank you, that makes me happy. We were childhood friends, lived nearby, and went to the same school from elementary to high school. Our classmates often teased us. I liked him since elementary school, so I was happy about that. We had a close relationship, more than friends but not quite lovers for a long time. What a real-life love romance comic. I was amazed by the story of a youth I couldn't have. That's incredible. It's like a love romance comic. I feel like I'd just be an extra character in a comic. But I would have watched over you two warmly if we were in the same class. You're not an extra character. I'm sure we would have been good friends. Her words made me imagine such a fun high school life. That would have been really enjoyable. Then, at our high school graduation ceremony, Michael confessed to me in front of everyone. It was embarrassing but also wonderful. He said he had liked me for a long time and asked me to go out with him. Wow, that must have been such an exciting moment. I wish I could have seen it. Everyone, including the parents, teachers, and friends, made a big fuss about it. When I said yes, he hugged me right there. It was embarrassing, but I was so happy. It's like a drama. Seriously, your boyfriend was the protagonist. I bet he brought you flowers on your dates and special occasions too. As I said that excitedly, Emily's expression turned serious. How did you know that? He really did those things. In that moment, I understood why I didn't have a girlfriend. I realized I needed to be more thoughtful and smooth like that. I mentally noted this as an area for self-improvement. It's impressive that there's a guy who can do something that cool so smoothly. I'll give it a try next time. Emily laughed at my declaration, and we continued talking while enjoying our scones and tea. She shared many memories of Michael, their fights, trips, and more. Listening to her, I found myself genuinely enjoying the stories and laughing along with her. When I checked the time, I was surprised to see that more than 2 hours had passed. This has been really fun. I realized I stopped talking about him over time. My friends and family avoided mentioning him, thinking it would make me sad. They were trying to be considerate of your feelings. But it's hard not to talk about someone you have so many good memories with. Yes, exactly. The accident and its aftermath had turned my memories of him into something sad. But I had so many happy memories too. I'm glad I remembered those. I'm really glad you did. You have such a beautiful expression right now. Really? Then it's thanks to you, David. Thank you so much. We talked for another hour before parting ways. Seeing her so happy made me feel really good. Since then, Emily and I kept in touch regularly via text and phone calls. About 3 months later, she invited me to her art exhibition. I'm holding an exhibition. Would you like to come? She specializes in landscape paintings, depicting the world she saw before her accident. Her paintings, full of sensitivity and emotion, have garnered many fans. I had no idea. Of course, I'll be there. I'm glad. Thank you. I'll be waiting for you. When she told me the date and time, it was on a Sunday, and the venue was easy to find. I promised I would definitely come and headed to the venue on the day. The venue was an art gallery, and the owner, who had always been supportive, provided the space for her. After checking in, I looked for her and saw her surrounded by a group of men and women. I waited until there was a break in the crowd and then approached her. Thank you for inviting me, Emily. My voice reached her, and she smiled. Thank you for coming, David. As she walked over, I handed her a bouquet of flowers. Congratulations. These are for you. She gently accepted the flowers and admired them. Thank you. They smell wonderful. I'm so happy. Oh, would you like to see my new work? Of course. I've been looking forward to seeing your paintings. Guided by Emily, I moved towards her new piece. The painting depicted a boy and a girl in school uniforms from behind, surrounded by the 4 seasons. The depiction of the seasons was stunning, especially the cherry blossoms in spring and the autumn leaves. It was hard to believe that someone with impaired vision had painted it. As I admired the painting, I finally spoke up. This is amazing. It's so beautiful. It really touches my heart. Are the 2 in uniforms you and Michael? She nodded yes. Yes, after talking with you, I remembered all the good memories I had with him and expressed the seasons we spent together. Spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Each season holds precious memories that I didn't want to forget. Emily was gently gazing at the painting. Her expression made me think that she was vividly recalling her memories with Michael. We looked at the painting together for a while, but then someone else called out to Emily. Oh, I'm sorry, I need to go. Go ahead. You must be busy. I'll look around and head out on my own. Don't worry about me. Thank you. I'll be in touch. I saw Emily off and then wandered around the gallery to look at other paintings. There were many flower paintings, and each one was truly beautiful. As I thought about bringing my mother, who surprisingly likes looking at paintings, to see the gallery with me, I decided to take one last look at the new piece. But someone else was already there. It was a tall man, wearing his hat low over his face. His profile, as he gazed intently at the painting, reminded me of a certain celebrity. Could it be? My heart started pounding as I quietly observed the man. Seeing him sniffle and shed tears, I was convinced and approached him. Excuse me, are you Michael? He turned towards me, surprised. Yes. That's me, but who are you? Seeing his confusion, I smiled. My name is David. I'm a friend of Emily. Though Michael looked puzzled, I continued without looking directly at him. It's a beautiful painting, isn't it? Emily's new work. She told me the 2 in uniform are you and her. You 2 look perfect together. I heard him gasp. The silence stretched on, and just as I thought he wouldn't respond, he spoke in a low voice. Perfect together. If you knew what I did to Emily, you wouldn't say that. I left her when she needed me most. The responsibility was too heavy. And it crushed me. From the corner of my eye, I saw Michael quietly crying. Emily told me about it. She understands why you left. She believes you left because you felt too much responsibility. She thinks it was something that couldn't be helped. Maybe so, but I can't forgive myself. I've never forgotten Emily. Even after we broke up, she was always on my mind. Even though I'd become a lawyer and achieved my dream, everything feels empty without her. The deep regret on Michael's face was evident, and I decided to confront him directly. Do you still love Emily? Yes, of course, I still love her. I haven't forgotten about her for a single day. She's always been the only one for me, then and now. Michael, who firmly declared this while facing me, was a truly sincere and wonderful man, even from another guy's perspective. I'm sure they'll be okay. They just took a detour. Thinking this, I felt a pang in my chest but chose to ignore it. At 27, I've gotten good at handling things like this. Well, it'll be fine. Why don't you muster up the courage to talk to Emily? I'm sure she still. As I was about to say that, the sound of a white cane tapping filled the air. I turned around slowly, and there was Emily. Emily, perfect timing. There's someone I'd like you to meet. Ignoring the nervous Michael, I spoke to Emily. Someone you want me to meet? I gestured to Michael to speak up. Gathering his resolve, Michael cleared his throat and spoke. Emily, how have you been? Do you recognize me? It's Michael. His voice trembled as he spoke, and Emily's body shook. Michael? Is it really you? With a trembling arm, she moved her cane rapidly and walked quickly towards him. As Michael took Emily's arm and hugged her, her sobs grew louder. The scene resembled the climax of a romance novel, and my heart swelled with emotion. Not wanting to intrude on their reunion after nearly 10 years, I quietly faded out of the scene. They must have a lot to catch up on. When I got home, my mother greeted me with the same smile she had that morning. So, how was your date? Did you have fun? It was great. I really believe in soulmates now. At first, my mother looked puzzled, but when I told her about Emily and Michael, she started crying. She's quite sentimental. That's a lovely story. I hope Emily and Michael find happiness. After crying so much that she needed a towel, she showed a slightly dissatisfied face. But, I have a feeling you'll still be single at 28. I could only give a wry smile at that. But I wanted her to understand this. Don't worry. I believe my soulmate is out there too. I'll patiently wait to meet her. When I said this confidently, my mother laughed, admitting she was impressed. Maybe you're right. I've never really believed in soulmates, but after hearing about those two, I'm starting to think they might exist. That night, I received a thank you call from Emily for reuniting them. Michael also thanked me over the phone. I didn't do much, just called out because I thought it was him. They were destined to meet again, I'm sure of it. 3 months later, I received a heartfelt thank you note and an invitation to their wedding.